All right, let's dive right in. If you're getting ready to tackle the SIPS L5M1 exam on managing teams and individuals, you have come to the right place. Today, we are going to break down this entire module into a super clear, straightforward roadmap to get you totally prepped for that exam. So, let's get into it. Look, I get it. It can feel like a mountain of theory, right? There are so many models, so many thinkers to remember. It's easy to feel a bit lost. But don't you worry. Our whole goal here is to cut through all that noise, give you a solid framework, and really build up your confidence so you can walk into that exam and just absolutely nail it. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to start with the big picture, how organizations actually work. Then we'll zoom in on the individuals and how to manage them. And then zoom in again on building great teams. And this is the important part. We'll then cover exactly how to use all this knowledge in your exam before we finish up with a final bit of motivation. Okay, first up, we're cracking Learning Outcome 1. Think of this as the foundation for everything else, okay? It's all about the basics of management theory, the different ways organizations are put together and run, and most importantly, why that really matters for you and your role in procurement. So, right at the heart of this whole topic, you've basically got two competing ideas. On one side, you have classical management. This sees an organization as a well-oiled machine, totally focused on efficiency and control. And on the other side, modern management, which sees it more like a living thing, an ecosystem that's all about people and being flexible. Let's meet the key players. Let's start with a classic Frederick Taylor. This guy was the original efficiency guru. His whole idea of scientific management was to analyze every single task to find the one single, most efficient way to get it done. For procurement, this is the thinking behind a standardized, step-by-step process for something like matching invoices. It's all about cutting waste and getting the most out of every action. Next up, Max Weber and his theory of bureaucracy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bureaucracy. That sounds awful, right? But for Weber, the idea was actually really positive. It was about creating fairness and order with a clear hierarchy and rules that apply to everyone. A perfect example is a strict procurement policy that says exactly who can approve a certain amount of spend. That is pure Weber. It makes things consistent and stops any favoritism. And now for a big shift. Elton Mayo and his human relations school came along and basically flipped the script. Through his famous Hawthorne studies, he discovered that people aren't just cogs in a machine. Shocker, right? He found they're actually motivated by feeling valued, by being part of a team, and by good communication. So a modern procurement leader who involves their team in big decisions to boost morale, they're using Mayo's ideas, whether they know it or not. This table right here? It's your perfect cheat sheet. It just lays out the differences so clearly. Under the classical view, a worker is seen as a tool. But in the modern view, they're an individual with needs. And what about change? Well, classical structures are really slow to adapt, while modern ones are built to be flexible. Think of this as your go-to guide for comparing these two big approaches. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, interesting history lesson, but why does any of this actually matter to me? Well, here's why. Structure isn't just some abstract chart on a wall. It decides how information flows, how decisions get made, and at the end of the day, how effective your procurement team can be. Understanding your company's structure is absolutely key to getting things done. Now, to help us get our heads around these structures, Harry Mintzberg gave us 5 simple building blocks. He said that pretty much every organization has these parts. From the top leadership, he calls that the strategic apex, all the way down to the people doing the day-to-day grind, like the buyers in the operating core. And the way these blocks are stacked and arranged is what gives an organization its unique shape. So how do these 5 blocks actually come together in the real world? Well, Mintzberg showed that whichever block is the most powerful, the most dominant one, is what shapes the whole organization. So in what he calls a machine bureaucracy, like a huge government department, the technostructure, the planners and the analysts, they're the key players. But in a professional bureaucracy like a university, the power is with the experts themselves, the professors in the operating core. Okay, now this next one is a seriously powerful tool for your analysis. Gareth Morgan's idea of organizational metaphors. His point was that you can really understand a company by looking at it through different lenses. Is your procurement department like a well-oiled machine? Or is it more like a political system with different groups all fighting for power? Each metaphor shows you a different truth and helps you figure out what's really going on. Okay, so we've covered the organization as a whole big entity. Now let's zoom right in and get a handle on learning outcome 2, understanding and managing the individuals who actually make everything happen. So, Ising's model gives us a really simple but useful way to think about personality. It helps us understand people on a few key scales.
For instance, just knowing if someone on your team is more of an extrovert or an introvert can change how you manage them, right? The introvert might need a written brief and time to think, but the extrovert would probably love a big brainstorming meeting. Then there's the neuroticism stability scale, which helps you manage pressure. Someone who's a bit more on the anxious side might need more reassurance during a tough negotiation. And that last one, psychoticism, sounds a bit dramatic, but really it just refers to traits like being independent or a risk taker, which can be super valuable in a fast-paced procurement role.
Now, let's talk about what gets people out of bed in the morning: motivation. And for this, you absolutely have to know Vroom's expectancy theory. Seriously, think of it like a magic formula for motivation. For someone to be driven, 3 things have to be true. First is expectancy. Do I actually believe I can do this? Second is instrumentality. If I do it, will I really get a reward? And third is valence. And do I even want that reward? If any of those 3 is a 0, the whole thing falls apart. Motivation is 0. Simple as that. Okay, so we've covered the organization, we've covered the individuals. What's next? You guessed it, putting them all together. We're on to learning outcome 3, how to build and manage really effective teams to hit those big procurement goals. Tuckman's stages of team development. You're going to see this one for sure. Think of it as the natural life cycle of pretty much any team. It all starts with forming. Everyone's polite, a bit hesitant. Then comes the really interesting part: storming. This is where disagreements and conflicts pop up. Now, as a manager, your job is not to panic. This stage is totally normal and actually healthy. You guide the team through it, and they get to norming, where they figure out the rules and their roles. And the final goal, performing, where the team is just humming along as a high-functioning unit. Okay, deep breath. We've gone through a ton of theory. But knowing the theory is only half the battle, isn't it? This section is all about the most important part: how to actually use all this knowledge to get the maximum marks you can in your exam. Let's cut right to the chase. This is what the examiner is looking for. No fluff, just the facts. For learning outcome 2, they want you to explain how personality types might affect a procurement professional's work. For LO3, they want to see you use a model, like Tuckman's, to explain how you'd built a procurement team from scratch. The golden rule for every single question is application, application, application. And just as important, here are the common mistakes, the traps you need to avoid at all costs. Don't just list a theory by name, explain what it means and why it's relevant. The single biggest mistake students make is giving generic textbook examples. You have to link it back to a real-world procurement or supply chain situation. And please, if the question says analyze, that's your cue to dig deeper. Don't just explain what something is, explain why it matters. All right, we're on the home stretch now. We've built the foundation, we've looked at all the individual parts, and we've gone over the exam strategy. Now for just one final thought to carry with you through your revision and right into the exam hall. So please remember this: success in this exam isn't going to come from stressing out. It's going to come from having a purpose. Understanding all these concepts isn't just about getting a pass. It's about becoming a better, more effective leader. You have put in the work. You know these models. You know how to apply them. Trust yourself. Trust what you can do. You've got this. Good luck.